Jessica here with Joyful and Simple Designs. Today we're going to be making this planter box. It's meant to put a basket in here of flowers. There's a lot of gaps and holes, so it's not meant for planting directly in it, but it's a great planter. If you have a basket of flowers, you can put it right in. So let's get started. So for this project, I am using cedar fence pickets. I chose these fence pickets because I like the rustic look of them, and I also chose them because they are cheap. So this is a pretty inexpensive project to make. I am going to be using the table saw. So I know the table saw can be a little bit intimidating, but we're just going to rip these boards down in half. So it's a really simple cut. And if you are uncomfortable with the table saw, I always recommend grabbing a second person to just be able to grab the boards from the other side as you're cutting. So I'm going to give these boards a quick sand, and then I'm going to rip them down. The cedar boards are pretty rough, so I'm just going to give them a quick sand. So I'm going to rip these boards in half. They're 5.5 inches. And so I'm going to measure out 2.75 inches. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to raise my blade. So our blade shouldn't be too much higher than our wood. So I'm going to be ripping these boards in half. So I'm going to measure from the fence to the blade. Boards are 5.5 inches, so I'm going to measure out at 2.75 inches. And I'm going to tighten my fence down. And when you are ripping wood down on the table saw, you want to just be really cautious. This isn't to scare you, but wood can get kind of bound up and then fly back. So when you're ripping wood down, you want to make sure that your wood is pushed towards the fence. You want to apply pressure. Always use a push stick, and I always use eyeglasses for the table saw. So as I'm pushing my wood through, I'm going to make sure it's level on the table saw and pushed up against the fence. I'm going to rip another board at 1.5 inches. So I'm going to adjust the fence. And so I'm just measuring from the inside of the fence to the inside of the blade. And this piece that I'm ripping down now is going to be for a support piece on the inside of the planter. Once your wood is all ripped down, now we're going to cut. And I've included a cut list in the plans, so I'm not going to go through every single piece. But if you are doing multiple cuts of the same size, I like to put a stopper in, so let me show you how I do that. So we have quite a few pieces that we're going to be cutting at 14 inches. So I'm going to come on my board, mark 14 inches out. I'm going to line it up where I would cut it at. And I'm going to put a stop block on the miter saw. So I'm going to put a board here, and I'm going to clamp it on. And you'll just want to come back and make sure that you're in the right spot and adjust as needed. So this stop block is just going to make it so we don't have to measure out 14 inches 16 times for this one planter. We do have a few cuts with angled ends, so I will walk you through that. I'm going to start by moving my fence down here to 45 degrees. I'm going to cut that. And we're going to be measuring from long end to long end, so I'm going to flip this over. We are going to have 2 cuts at 17 inches and 2 cuts at 15 inches, so 4 separate boards. I'm going to start with 17 inches. I'm going to measure 17. And so we're cutting from long end to long end. And so where my mark is should be the longest end of the board. So we'll do 2 at 17 inches. And we'll have 2 more just like this that are 15 inches long. Okay, we're gonna start out by making one side, and 2 of the sides are gonna be the same, and the other 2 sides will be the same. So I have 2 boards that are 16 inches long and 4 boards that are 14 inches long. So I'm going to lay down the longer boards, and our shorter boards, the 14-inch boards, are going to be slatted on here. And this is the inside, so I am going to be stapling on the inside just so we don't see our staples or screws or whatever you're going to be using. We want to line up the top board to be flush with the top and the side. That way everything just stays really nice and square as we continue on. So I'm going to start with this first board. Staple it on. Now between each board we're going to have an inch, so I'm going to measure out an inch, make a mark, is where I'm going to put the top of my next board. Okay, our next side is going to be a little bit different because of how the boards sit. So our leg, I guess I'll call this, is going to start at the edge of this leg. So these legs are going to be sitting next to each other. And so our beams are going to come in, and so these are our 14-inch boards. They're going to start at the end of these. So when we're putting this together, we need to keep in mind that our next sides are not going to sit flush like our first sides did. Okay, so I want to make sure that everything lines up really well. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to just make a line where my next set of boards are going to sit. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to set this on top, and I'm just going to make a line where we're going to start. So I can see it, but it's probably really light on your end. So that is where the inside of this board is going to sit. Okay, I'm going to attach my 14-inch pieces. And make sure you are putting your support beams on the right side of your line. And then we're just going to come in and we're going to measure an inch between each of our slats. Okay, so we want a second side just like this. Okay, now we are going to attach our sides together. So our side 1 should fit right into this groove of our second side. I'm going to put those together, and I'm just going to shoot in staples along here. So there will be a few staples that we'll see, but they're not very noticeable, so I'm not very concerned about it. I'm going to come in and put my other sides on. And so you'll just do this for all 4 sides. And so you'll come in and attach all 4 sides, and you'll just want to add as many staples or screws that you need for your project. Okay, for the smaller pieces that we had ripped down, I cut at 14 inches, so I'm going to put them inside the planter. and I'm going to put them down on the third slat on the very bottom of it. And this is gonna give us, I'm gonna put some supporting pieces in here for our basket to sit. I'm gonna place these supports in here, and this planter is meant for like a hanging basket. I did not make this one long enough. So I'm gonna place these supports in here, and then I'm just gonna staple them in. That way when you put a basket in here, it will sit nicely. For the last step, we are going to add our corner pieces. So these are the boards that we cut out on angles. They only fit one way. We're gonna line them up as best as we can, and then we'll shoot them on. So once your top is square and you're happy with the placement, you can either screw or staple or nail on the top. And now you have your planter box. It's ready for a basket of flowers.